Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the weekend preview here on Hype and Bark. It is myself, Adam Beadle, here, your host, as always. I feel like I always, what I've caught myself doing is I feel like I always catch myself coming into this show or into any of the shows I've done, whether it be on radio or it be on Hype and Bark, and I go, lots going on this week. I feel like I need to come up with like a new. I feel like I just stick to like the same things. I need to like break that habit and come up with some new exciting like intros to do as I come on the show. But it's another great week. I think if you're an Arizona sports fan, you didn't have the greatest of week this week, other than the fact that Corbin Burns did pretty damn good today for his first game as a Diamondback. That is probably the high of maybe February, potentially. It's been a rough month for Arizona sports fans. But we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the All-Star game. We're talking about the Suns. We're talking about ASU. We're going to talk about high school basketball. And who better than to talk about it all with the one, the only, Jacob Saliga, joining me, the weekend preview. Jacob, been a while since you've been on the show. I would say probably since the end of football season.
Yeah, I'd say since the end of ASU season. So been a while. We got a lot going on in between. But like you said, in the wise words of Adam Beadle, every week has been full of lots of great stuff going on. So definitely played into it.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about things as kind of break down the week a little bit. First, I want to start with this All-Star game that we had on Sunday, which for me, I didn't take part in viewing any of it just because it's just not the same. I don't know what your thoughts are. Did you like the new format? Did you think it was interesting? What are your thoughts on the whole All-Star game?
I like the format of it. I like the idea of it just because I think, the league has been desperately trying to find new ways to make it competitive and make it, worthwhile. And their whole thing was it's going to be better for the fans. It's going to be better for everybody involved.
Right.
And then between Kevin Hart calling Shaq saying he looks like certain things on national television to Mr. Beast being awkward on camera with some guy ruining his confidence while he's shooting a basketball to, all the commercials and everything. Like, I think, I don't know if you saw the graphic. It's like the All-Star game broadcast had like 30 something minutes of basketball and had over 2.5 hours of commercials, breaks, and different gimmicks and things going on. And my big thing is like, I think what basketball fans need to understand and realize is that we've reached a point and we've reached a generation within this league that truly does not give a damn about the fan experience, that does not care about, I want to go out there, bust my butt in the All-Star game and everything like that. Like, that's just, it's gone now. There is no pride with it. And so I think part of that is because it's become, in a way, watered down by social media, by quote-unquote NBA Twitter, by the people who talk the game, whether it's Stephen A. Smith or the Inside the NBA crew, to where it doesn't mean anything to be an all-star anymore. Like, I think that's the biggest reason why we're seeing the product fail, and the reason why it wasn't really that fun of an experience is because the NBA, and I forget who said it, but I heard this last week in regards to the All-Star game or earlier this week, pardon me. It was a great point. It's like the NBA, the media that covers the NBA, the analysts, everybody like that, they do more time crapping on the players and crapping on the NBA than actually propping up the game of basketball and propping up the
Yeah,
players.
and promoting it. Yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, think about it. Like, you have Shaq on the broadcast. I mean, you said you didn't watch it. Shaq was on the broadcast for like the entire first game that Wemby played. Like, oh, Bull out there. Bull out there. Like, that's so disrespectful to Victor Wembanyama, who is already on the path to becoming possibly one of the greatest players in the history of the game.
Right.
And so I think it's just like things like that that have led to where this generation of players, you know, they don't care. I mean, I think you remember last year, I don't know if you remember watching, Anthony Edwards just said, oh, yeah, I'm just going to go shoot left-handed. I don't care. Like, I'm just
Yeah.
like, it used to be like, and I can't
And then you had Victor Wembanyama and Chris Paul, who didn't even try in the skills challenge. They were just trying to, you know, do the fastest they could, or just were intentionally throwing balls away. Like, there's no point.
Yeah, and like it sucks because I can't believe we've kind of reached the point where we could say back in the day, if you will. But like, I remember like the first All-Star game I remember watching was the one when it was here in Phoenix. And that was when, you know, Kobe and Shaq had co-MVPs, and it meant something to like be a part of it and actually like celebrate it. You know, I know for a lot of people who watched this show, who were close with, they remember in their childhoods or even in their teenage years watching when it was like AI and Kevin Garnett going at it in the All-Star, where they're wearing their team's jersey. When you got players like Kobe Bryant in the dunk contest, when you got players like Jason Richardson, Vince Carter, everybody. So like, it's a shame because I think the game of basketball is like continuing to trend downward. On the flip side of it, though, like you look at the game of hockey, they're coming out of possibly their best week they've had, since I was in elementary school, maybe.
Yeah, right. I think I was talking to some people yesterday, like the USA Canada hockey game yesterday. Might have been, and it might just be because, you know, nobody really pays attention that much to hockey. I mean, me personally, I don't pay a whole lot of attention to it. But like, you look at the history of it, and that game yesterday might be the biggest game for hockey in general within the last 2 decades.
Yeah, like the first game that comes to mind to me when I think of the game of hockey right now is that 2010 gold medal game between the USA and Canada when Sidney Crosby had the golden goal.
Right.
You think of last night. Now, granted, you know, being from Chicago, family full of Chicago Blackhawks fan. I'm a Chicago Blackhawks fan. You know, I remember the 3 Stanley Cup runs. I remember sitting down on the couch watching every single game possible during those cup runs and playoff games. But in terms of hockey, to pull in the average non-hockey viewer, to pull in the casuals, to pull in people who really maybe aren't fans of hockey, those 2 games stick out to me. And the big thing that's unique about it is that the year after and the remainder of the season after that Olympics, I think the stat was NHL broadcast after that 2010 gold medal game. Second half of the year, I think they saw like a 45% jump in the average viewership. I'm not saying that the NHL is going to get that same spike now, but the NHL
I get what you're saying though, because you're coming off a weekend like they're having, and now all of a sudden the NHL is back on Saturday, and with the dip in the NBA viewership and the NBA ratings, and with how professional hockey is one of the few high major market pro sports that plays their games very early on in the day. I mean, I really think that the only other sport that generates a lot of revenue like that is college football, and college football starts their days about 9 a.m. Hockey, they're starting 10 a.m., 11 a.m., and they've got games going all the way to the end of the day. And so I agree with that exactly. I think that is a great opportunity for them to kind of jump in this hidden market of early morning viewership. And I think that's why so many of the things like Get Up and First Take and Pat McAfee show and whatnot have so many ratings, because people like to turn on their TVs in the morning and listen to people talk about, what's going on in the day. But what if there's a difference where these people are turning on their TVs and that action is already happening?
Yeah. And I also think too, like, I think what helps, a lot of hockey fans were explaining on social media, And I know I was one of them at work, like explaining to some of the people who were saying like they were tuning in and haven't watched hockey like that, is like the experience you're getting during this USA Canada, these two USA Canada games and throughout the four nations is what playoff hockey is all about. And, you know, like I said, I grew up loving watching playoff hockey. Heck, I still watch playoff hockey even when my team isn't in it. Playoff hockey, in my opinion, out of the four major professional sports, is the best playoff atmosphere, is the best playoff games being played, because all of those players are willing to lay everything down, their bodies, physically, mentally. I mean, the amount of times you hear about players after a Stanley Cup run playing with torn shoulders, broken ribs, missing half their teeth, all of these really like some of them with even more severe injuries.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's just like, whether we want to admit it as people or not, we love seeing people put themselves into danger and put themselves on the line like that.
Dropping
like,
the gloves in the first 9 seconds 3 times, going, you know,
like,
bam, bam.
That in terms of broadcasting, that's what turns people on into wanting to watch it more and wanting to explore it more. And so I think that's something that I think the NHL can really capitalize on it, because this NHL season, it's going to come down to the wire, the playoff races in both conferences. And also, too, you have the pseudo rivalry, if you will, now between Arizona's own Austin Matthews and Canada's Connor McDavid. And, you know, like I said last night, you know, I want to give a shout out to Austin Matthews, man. The kid from Scottsdale, grew up right down the street from Horizon High School. Yeah. One of the absolute studs in the league. I think this broadcast said last night, he's one of only 8 players in NHL history to score 60-plus goals in a season. He's done it twice. Yeah. It's so impressive for all the records and all the accolades and everything that he's accomplished, that he still finds a way to rep the state of Arizona on an international stage by choking when it matters the most. You know, that's the real Arizona in him, man. And you know, that's man,
special. You had to bring that up.
Listen, it's the Arizona way.
Go ahead.
No, it's the truth. It's the Arizona way. I have lived here long enough. I've adopted this as my home state. I have embraced this state with everything I have. Like, I've just accepted. As a Suns fan, I will never see anything happen in my lifetime.
Right.
You know, that's just me. I'm just acknowledged. Arizona we find creative ways to lose. That's us as a state and our people.
I don't know about hockey playoffs being the most, you know, exciting, most people ready to go. I think baseball would be up there. I think watching October baseball is pretty. I also think when you get down to like even the AFC and the NFC championship, that those teams are fighting neck and neck. I don't know this year. This year maybe not as much.
Like, but truthfully, I think pro football is a solid third right now.
That's fair to say this year. That's fair. I would say historically, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But again, that's all just now the NBA definitely at the bottom. 100%.
I think, the NBA has continued to trend downward in general. Like, it's playoff coverage in general. Like, it's gotten to a point now also, too, where it's just like NBA fans, like, I think what kind of hurt it was, gosh, when did it, a decade ago this year, Cavs Warriors met for the first time. The crappy part was going through the next 4 years after that, where you're like, oh, well, you know, who cares what happens October through April or through June? We all know what it's going to be in the end. That's what really started to kill it, because it basically made it to where it was just like, what's the point of caring about the playoffs, wanting to watch the playoffs, seeing who gets there and everything, seeing our teams be successful when we know who's going to be there at the end.
Right.
Yeah.
Fair point. I think going back to something you said earlier, I think the fan experience is something to bring up, and how, you know, not all professional sports teams, you know, take that into consideration nowadays and put that at the forefront, which is why I think something like college athletics is making a huge jump. Talk about hockey too, in general, Arizona State hockey, who's playing their biggest series, arguably as a Division I school tonight and tomorrow against Western Michigan, who is like number 3 in the country. That's going to be huge if they try to make it to the NCAA tournament. You talk about what Graham Mercedes has implemented in the football world and the basketball world, but I think the fan experience also ties into something you and I both know and love, have known and loved forever, and that's high school sports. Because there's so much how do I say this? It's so real on the high school level. Coaches are
Yes.
real, players are real. You're not often going to find a whole lot of negativity, rarely any.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes it so special and what makes high school sports so special. And what I tell people when they ask me, oh, why do you like covering high school sports over covering college sports, professional sports? And I say, you get a different group of people and a different atmosphere that you don't get to experience at any. You build these relationships you don't get to
Yeah.
experience at any of these other major markets.
Yeah, like I think a great example of that is I think back to the video you took of Richard Taylor talking to his guys after they beat Queen Creek in the semis.
Yeah.
The thing that makes high school sports so unique and so special and why we are so lucky to cover it the way that we do is that these kids at max, you get that high school image of them for 4 years most of the time max, and then eventually you may see them get to college, be successful, get to the pros possibly and be successful, have long careers. But it's those 4 years that are so formative and that you see them at their rawest and the most pure form of them, where they
Right.
haven't been influenced by the outside world, where they haven't been influenced by college life and how pros life and everything. Like, they're number one main focus is the school that they play for, the teammates that they have, and everything that they're a part of. You don't get that in college
Right.
really anymore. You don't get that in the pros because everything is so transactional at those levels. Now, granted, some of that has found a way to flood into the high school scene, but nowhere near as bad as it is at those two levels. But you know, as somebody, like taking it back to me coaching, like being at Desert Edge, we have somebody who was on the staff of the last, who of the team that made it to the championship in 2012 and lost. We have people who are on the staff of that 2015 team and lost. And one of the things or 2015 team and won. And one of the things that's so unique is that the legends of those kids and those athletes stays at those schools
Yeah.
for years. I mean, that 2015 team at DE still gets talked about from the teachers, from the coaches, from the people who were there. And those kids and the impact that they make and what they do is, I mean, Deshaun Warner, Jamar Bill Goins, Jerry Washington after this season, all these type of guys, they're going to be remembered forever at DE, for example. And that's not necessarily something you see at other places, and their legacies live on, and that's what makes high school sports so special.
Absolutely. I think this is a great segue to talking about high school sports, talking about the Open Division playoffs, high school basketball, boys and girls. Let's go ahead and since they're playing tonight, I believe the boys are playing tonight, right?
Yes,
If I'm
boys
correct.
tonight. Girls had their games last night.
Let's go ahead and my screen is going crazy here. Oh my goodness. I can't even see what just happened. All right, people, hang on.
The perks of doing stuff like this live,
Mm,
you
mm,
kind of got adjust and got to be able to do things on the fly, no questions asked.
I don't like. I can't even see you. I don't even know where you went. You.
I'll say this because I have it kind of pulled up on the side. The people can see me.
I know the people can see you. I can't see the people. So, here, let's do this. Let's do this. Did that work? No, it did not.
I
Uh,
mean, hey, I'll riff for a moment. Let you figure it
do,
out.
do that. Let talk to me about some of the crazy. Obviously the overtime game against Brophy. It was the overtime game between Brophy and Prescott,
Yeah.
and just some of the other craziness that has gone down the boys' side of the bracket.
All right. So while Adam doesn't realize we can see him, but
I know you can see me.
yeah, we can see you. We can see you. The people can see you. While Adam's figuring that out, we need. I am heartbroken that we're not going to get to see Uriah Tenet versus Koa Pete tonight, because that matchup, had it happened, had Prescott pulled it off, that moment,
Hey,
that
look, I can
game
see you
could have
now.
been the biggest game this state has seen in a long time, just because of those two players going at it. I know, like, Listen, it takes a lot for me to travel east of the 17, people. It really does. All right, I don't get anything east of the 17. You're asking a lot of me. I would have made that trip to Perry tonight had Uriah and Prescott been able to pull it out. But I mean, credit to Brophy, man. I mean, that was a gutsy win. Dalen Sharper almost having 30. Luke Weiskamp, who came through with the game-winning shot. Ryan Burbach, who's been one of the best snipers, not just in the state, but on the West Coast, holding it down for Brophy. Brophy's a team who's gotten better as the year has gone on, and now they find themselves with a familiar foe. And people got to remember, last year when Brophy met Perry for a third time, I believe it was in the Elite Eight last year, Brophy came very close to knocking off Perry in the postseason last year. Brophy, they are so well coached. Coach Hooten over there does an amazing job. Perry, Sam Duane, he knows this. His team's going to need to be ready. They're going to get everything they can thrown at them tonight from Brophy. So I'm just going to let people know, if you're scoreboard watching tonight, you're watching a screen and you're like, wow, how is this so close? Or why is this such a tight game? Those are two teams who know one another and who grind their butts off and are going to make that a tough game. So that's definitely one people need to keep an eye out on tonight. And, don't be alarmed if that game is possibly closer than it may seem.
Absolutely. I know you're going to Canyon View and Millennium. We'll talk about that game in a second. But I think the game I'm actually probably most excited for the round of, the round of 16 here, round 2 in the Open Division, is this Higley-Sandra O'Connor game. Sandra O'Connor obviously performed very well this season, but Higley's kind of been that team this year that has ever so slightly snuck up. And now, this is going to be a really tough test for the Eagles.
Yeah, I think the big thing that stands out to me right away in this matchup is, okay, how does Higley do against, pardon me, Michael Simcoe? I mean, Higley, they have some size, but it's more out here than it is height, if you will. And they're physical, don't get me wrong. I mean, that Higley team, there's a reason why they were very close to making it to the 5A championship last year. And, this is a team that if I'm not mistaken, they lost 2 region games this year. I want to say one was to Williamsfield. Yep. I want to say the other, was it the Highland? It might have been the Highland. But even then, this is a battle-tested team. They played Perry really tough early on in the year. Played Perry actually closer than most teams in the state have this year. But the guy people need to pay attention to tonight, Higley has upset potential in this matchup. And it starts with Noah Glore, their guard. Mm-hmm. Absolute bucket getter. I think he's averaging something like 20 points a game. 3 levels.
Yeah, around 19.
Yeah, he's a 3-level scorer. He knows how to score. He knows how to get to the basket and finish. He knows how to pull up in the mid-range or pull up from deep and knock it down. If O'Connor's guards aren't ready, that could be a guy who could definitely do some damage. And then you obviously got the Dabney brothers. I want to say it's Gavin and Donovan. They're tough, and they could definitely make things hard for O'Connor. How they contain Michael Simcoe, that's the question. If they're able to, don't be surprised if Higley could win that game or possibly make it very tough for the Eagles.
Absolutely. Canyon View, Millennium, you said you're going to have to get there, park early tonight. Yeah. What stands out to you about that game?
It's a rivalry. It's an Agua-Fria district rivalry. These schools aren't that far apart. It's special because, these two teams have been in a region the past few years. They played against one another every year since since KVU has played varsity competition, if you will. The thing that's unique, though, and it's the same thing with the girls, they didn't play one another this year. I joked with both coaching staffs, both the boys and the girls, and all of them kind of joked because they know I'm right, but they don't want to, and they're like, they both ducked one another this year.
Yeah.
I think, truthfully, it's a lot of pride in the sense where it's just like, damn, we don't want to lose to them. And I get it, but it's a rivalry. And I hope that, with this being a postseason matchup and, both girls teams being as successful as they are year in and year out, that this is a matchup that can continue in non-region play. But, this is the best team KVU has had since the school is open. This is probably the best chance they've had to possibly beat Millennium in their history. And on the flip side of it with Millennium, to me, I think this is Millennium's toughest test until the semifinals. Mm-hmm. Catalina Foothills because I believe Cali and Foothills did not have Melvin Stubbs, their best player in that first matchup, in that first round matchup. So Cali and Foothills is a footnote. I'm sorry, all due respect to Hamilton or Notre Dame, give me Millennium by 20 plus against either.
Ooh, dang! All right.
Oh yeah, I forgot we got the Hamilton alum in the
Oh,
building.
I was just about to ask you actually, how surprised were you about Hamilton's upset over Willow Canyon? I didn't see that coming.
The possibility is there. That flex zone is a pain in the butt if you're a coach to prepare against. But even then, I mean, Hamilton has played one of the toughest schedules in the state. And it tested them. And I mean, playing in the Premier Region where you got Basha every night,
Right?
You got Castile every night. Perry goes without saying. Like you're gonna be well prepared. And I believe in their non-region. I know they played Millennium already. Let me actually pull this up real quick because I want to give them their flowers because shout out to Doug Harris. He's in his last year before retirement over there at Hamilton.
He's retiring.
Oh, I don't know if I should have leaked that. I don't know if that's out there yet. Shout out to Coach Harris, but he their schedule, O'Connor to start the year, Liberty, number 10 team in the Open, Desert Vista, who at the beginning of the year looks like could have been a potential top 10 team in the Open, just fell short. Red Mountain made the Open. Perry twice, obviously. Millennium, Basha twice, like Castile twice. Yeah. Like they're battle tested, and so. I'm going to be honest with you. I think their hot streak continues. I think they go to Notre Dame Prep tonight. I think they beat Notre Dame Prep tonight to advance to the quarterfinals of the Open Division. That's a really good team. And, hey, when you're playing with house money, you know you're going to show up there and be like, hey, screw it. Let's go. Let's do what we can to win.
It'll definitely be interesting to watch. I love Doug Harris. I had him as he's my freshman year social studies teacher.
Well, if Doug may cuss me out now, because we're gonna have to watch. See. What's funny about this is, for those who don't know, most of the time, because usually on a Friday or a Friday night, especially during like the ASU season, I wasn't able to do it, especially if we had a road game. I wasn't able to hop on here and do it. So we would record on like a Thursday night. Yeah. That would have been one of those moments I've been like, Adam, I need you to wipe that. I need you to edit that out.
Guess what? We're live.
Yeah, you can't do that when live. Can't fake live. So I'm sure my phone's already blown up from a couple of people about that statement. So I'm definitely the good news is that you won't catch me on Arizona Avenue anytime soon, so nobody's
all right. You're gonna have to take your private jet to get over there anyway. So
private jet.
Let's talk about another matchup that we had on the west side. Williamsfield took down Liberty. With the talent that Williamsfield has on this team, I was curious to see if maybe Liberty's experience being in this position would prevail, but I'm also not surprised that Williamsfield was able to pull this one out in the West Side.
Williamsfield is a team that truthfully I don't think has played to their potential at times this year. Not even at times. A lot of the times this year, to me, I think this is a team that, especially when you got to like TOC, I mean, they went over at TOC. They really struggled coming in the region play. I mean, they lost games to like Queen Creek. I know they dropped one to both Higley and Highland. Like they've really underperformed at times. Mm-hmm. But when you have the talent they have, it was always they always were going to have the talent to pull off wins like this. I mean, when you have arguably one of the best freshmen in the entire country who may end up being an NBA player when it's all said and done, and somebody like Aiden Diggs, your life's going to be easy. But I think the thing that stood out to me was when you go back and watch the highlights from the people that were there and you go and look at other things, it was their size and how they attacked Liberty that really stood out to me because, the thing that makes Williamsfield hard is their lineup has three guys 6'6" or taller. Mm-hmm. That's hard to defend against, to prepare against. I mean, there's a very, very small handful of teams in the state that have the size and the length to be able to match up with that. Liberty just isn't one of them. Liberty's tallest kid, I want to say, is 6'5", but even then, like, he isn't a 6'5", if you feel me. And so, that was a bad matchup for Liberty. But on the flip side of it, it's just a credit to Williamsfield because, listen, that's a 12-point win for Williamsfield. That 12-point win is honestly closer to 25 than it is to 10.
Hmm.
Like when you go back and watch the film of it. So that's a credit to Williams Field. And listen, you're talking about a team with size. You're talking about a team with length. You're talking about a team with good guard play. That's Boulder Creek. So
Mm-hmm.
to me, this is a really intriguing matchup. If I wasn't committed to Millennium, I would have definitely made the drive to Boulder Creek tonight because I think these are two evenly matched teams in that department, and that if both stay out of foul trouble, this could be a very tight game coming down to the wire with how well they match up with one another. And I'm going to be honest, I would not be surprised if either one of these teams got to the semifinal. They both have that potential. It's just playing up to it. Boulder Creek, for example, when I made my picks earlier this week, I have Boulder Creek going to the semifinals.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, Williamsfield, when you have a kid like Aiden Diggs and you have the talent they have, you can make that run too. So it should be a fun one in Anthem tonight. And for anybody who's not making it out to a game, that's definitely one that you should lock in on and definitely have the stream up to. It's a free stream on their huddle, so definitely pay attention to it because that game could be the game of the night when it's all said and done.
Absolutely. And whoever they face, whether it be Williamsfield or Boulder Creek in the next round, they're going to have a tough matchup, whether that be St. Mary's or Sunny Slope. The Battle of Phoenix, St. Mary's not having the same success they had last season, but nonetheless, when these two teams come to fight one another, it's pretty exciting to watch.
Yeah, these two teams met earlier this season, and Sunny Slope got a comfortable victory. These two teams, they're kind of pseudo rivals. They both hate Brophy Prep, but they both hate one another just as much. And so I'm very interested in this. Cam Williams is the X factor in this game. Mm-hmm. If Cam Williams is able to score and is able to have an impact on this game, because he really struggled the first time that they met going up against the size and physicality of St. Slope. If he is able to capitalize, St. Mary's can keep themselves in this game and possibly win this one. Granted, I have Sunny Slope winning this game, but that's the X factor in this one for St. Mary's. On the flip side of it, for Sunny Slope, how do you have the matchup advantage in terms of your guard play? How well does Ryder Portilla and Delton Prescott do on the offensive end? That is the biggest question. If they are struggling, St. Mary's is going to stay in that game for longer than they would like, and that could make it where that game's coming down to the wire.
Absolutely. One of the games we didn't talk about that I kind of skipped over was Basha taking on Deer Valley, a rematch from last year. Obviously, Deshaun Middlebrook now. He was on Mesquite, not Deer Valley.
He was on Mesquite, but he's very familiar
right.
with Deer Valley. He is very familiar with them.
Absolutely. So that should be an exciting one to watch as well. But we're going to go ahead and flip over to the girls' side of the bracket. You were at Valley Vista and Kellis last night. What excited you about that matchup, Valley Vista coming out on top?
To me, last night was Valley Vista playing to the potential of being a state champion, which entering the season, we knew they had the potential to be. It's funny because the three teams that won their bracket as Section 7 or got to the finals of the bracket as Section 7 were all three West Valley teams. It was Valley Vista, O'Connor, and Kellis. O'Connor and Kellis both lost last night, but Valley Vista had won. And Valley Vista looked pretty good in the summertime, all things considered. They really didn't gel early on in the year. Now, part of that was because their head coach, Brooke Hinkins, she didn't come back until right after New Year's because she had just given birth to her first child. And so for Coach Hinkins, once she came back, you really saw them kind of get into the fold. Their third game, they went through, her first game was against O'Connor. Her second game, they lost against Xavier. Her third game against Millennium. Since then, since they finally gotten to click and gotten back in the rhythm, gotten into the system, they've been a buzzsaw. They have rolled through everybody since then. That was about the middle of January. I'm just going to say right now, Valley Vista is going to go down to Tucson and break the Morales brothers' hearts and, really, hurt the city of Tucson again because for the second year in a row, Valley Vista has to make that trip down to Tucson. And Valley Vista is a bad matchup for South Point. They do everything they do well, South Point doesn't do well. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to find things that South Point doesn't do well, but you look at the size, you look at the physicality, you look at how disciplined they are, you look at how good they are at finishing all things that they can capitalize against South Point. You saw them do it against Kellis. You saw them do it on, Monday or Tuesday night against Notre Dame. Valley Vista's hitting their stride at the right time. And it is very possible you may be looking at the state champion when it's all said and done.
Well, there you go. Jacob Saliga, bold prediction, Valley Vista going far. They're going to have to face a tough team in the next round, whether that be Pinnacle or Mesquite. Both of those teams have been on really great runs as of late.
Yeah, to me, Pinnacle and Mesquite is the most intriguing matchup of this Elite Eight and the girls' side of things because to me, I think when I made my prediction for the postseason, I have Pinnacle going to the championship. But this game to me is a toss-up. They're both talented. They both have great post players. They both know how to finish. They both have multiple girls who can dominate inside. Nora Moo, the senior of Pinnacle, a walking 18 and 13 a game. For Mesquite, you have Neve Guidry, who's been one of the best players in the state this year. These two teams, they match up so well against one another. To me, this is a literal pick'em. It takes a lot for me to consider going to the east side, like I mentioned in the last segment. This game really has me considering driving to Mesquite next Thursday just because of how good this game could be and just how talented these two teams are and just how well they match up. And this is one of the sneaky good coaching matchups in the state. Candace Gonzalez of Mesquite versus Erica Farnsworth of Pinnacle. These two coaches can scheme it up and get the best of them. This could be the game of the entire tournament in this bracket.
Well, there you go. Should be a good top of the bracket, at least once we get to the semifinals and the quarterfinals as well. Jump to the bottom of the bracket. Obviously, we've got this big-time matchup here between Xavier and Millennium, but first got to talk about this Desert Vista team, who's performed really, really well over the last couple of weeks. They got a big upset win against Gilbert last night. How strong is this Desert Vista team right now?
Desert Vista, to me, they go as Sherry Hatter goes. The freshman sensation who we saw pick up, what was it, almost 5 Division I offers as an incoming freshman at Section 7 alone. I mean, she is an absolute stud. I mean, this girl could score all 3 levels. She could stop and pop in the mid-range. She could pull it from deep, but it's her ability to finish. To me, her impact on this Desert Vista team. I'm not saying she's Jersey Robinson, but it's Jersey Robinson-esque.
Right.
How she plays and how dominant she can be and how good she is at being able to take over the game.
Man, you totally just made me think what this Desert Vista team would be like if Jersey Robinson was still on that team right now.
Oh, yeah. Heck, if Jersey had stayed, if Swindle, who's now at PHH, would have stayed, if Michaela, who went to South Carolina, the state, if she would have stayed like that Desert Vista team by far would have been number 1. But if you want to talk about what could have been, I'm going to tell you this right now. There is a world where Betty Fairfax right now is the most dominant team in the state and probably is a national top 25 team with the starting 5 they would have had. Because their starting 5 all transferred out after they made their playoff run 2 years ago, losing in the semis the eventual champ Sunrise Mountain. Their point guard at O'Connor. Their 2 bigs both went to, I want to say, Bella Vista Prep. Sanaya Jones, who was a starter for Desert Vista, she came over from Fairfax, and then they're like that team was so loaded. But all things considered, Desert Vista, man, like. Before I finish this soliloquy on this, can we just acknowledge that Millennium won the region championship in the regular season? I don't care if you won the regular season region championship. Whomever wins this whoever wins between these 4 teams and gets to the championship, that's who's the real region champion. Whether it's Desert Vista, Study Slope, Xavier, Millennium, whomever they are, they should be able to raise the banner in their school, like, hey, like, yeah, you won the regular season. We won the true region championship.
Yeah,
like, that's to me the big thing that stands out here. But Desert Vista, it's a tough matchup against Sunny Slope. I mean, they split the first 2 meetings this year. Granted, when DV lost to them, Cherry Hatter wasn't playing. When Cherry Hatter was playing, it was a 13-point win for DV. This game could go either way. Obviously, the wild card here is shooting. Sunny Slope is the best 3-point shooting team in the state. They're going to pull up. They're going to let you know that they're pulling up, and they're going to knock them down.
Yeah.
How do you stop it? It's questionable. Desert Vista isn't the best shooting team. And so if they are able to contain Sunny Slope, limit them on their 3-point attempts, and start knocking down some of those 2s, There's a world where Desert Vista gets to that semifinals, and by
Yeah.
that point, when you're rolling with 4 in a row over 4 great teams, you feel confident you can win a state championship. And the way it's looking, it is very possible. Little hint, it's very possible Desert Vista will not have to go too far for a potential semifinal matchup.
All right. I think I get where you're going with that. But yeah, this entire the rest of the girls' open division bracket is exciting. I think that you can make a case for every single team that's remaining to potentially make a run to the championship, a chance to win the championship. You wrote an article about it. I'm talking about how it's very wide open, and I certainly agree. And talking about those 2 articles on the boys' side, it's very clear that Perry is the favorite.
Yeah, I think that goes without saying. I think the 4-peat, no pun intended, is very much alive.
It's such a great
it's so
saying.
fitting.
It's so fitting.
To me, I think the thing when it comes to Koa and Perry possibly winning it, unlike the girls' side where South Point's the number 1 seed and Millennium's number 2, and it's like, oh, you could catch them on an off night and win. It is very, very, very hard to catch Perry on an off night.
Mm-hmm.
Perry's 2 losses have come to the number 1 and number 2 teams in the entire country. And even then, their loss to Harvard Westlake, which I saw live at Hoop Hall West, Perry played its worst offensive game I've seen them play, at least in the shot clock era.
Mm-hmm.
They played their absolute worst and still lost pretty much at the buzzer to Harvard.
Yeah.
If the number 2 team in the country with a Duke commit and I think 2 other high major commits has to go through all that to possibly beat them, it is very hard for a team of not necessarily college basketball players to go out there and beat them, especially when you're coming out of your 7th period,
right.
algebra 3-4 class or whatever it is. It's just hard. And so it takes a special team, and it's going to take a special night to beat Perry. I mean, heck, we were there live for the championship last year between Millennium. Sabian Kane had 25 in the first half, had 6 or 7 3-pointers.
Yeah.
This still wasn't enough in the end. You have to play almost perfect basketball to knock off Perry. And to me, right now, there's only a small handful of teams in the state that can do it. O'Connor, Millennium, Basha, then truthfully, maybe that or Sunny Slope, and that might be it.
Yeah.
If anybody else does it, all glory to you. Like if Brophy goes out there tonight and knocks off Perry, God bless every other team.
Well, we'd be having a different conversation.
Yeah, God bless every team that's playing in the 6A bracket. but it's going to be hard. It is going to be very hard to dethrone Perry.
So I'm going to ask you the question that it's probably been talked about for the last couple of years as a hypothetical question, but now it really has the chance to potentially be legit and be a real fact. If the Perry Pumas win their 4th straight state title, does Koa Pete go down as the greatest Arizona high school basketball player ever?
Based off purely high school?
Based off
I
would say yes, purely high school, but I think on top of that, you can count the accolades he's got from FIBA and the Gatorade Player of the Year mentions, and just him as a player in his high school career.
Pardon me. I think yes, and the reason why I say yes is because all things considered, Koa is a big reason why you've seen in the last 5 years or 4 years, if you will, Arizona take the leap that's taken in terms of respect nationally. It took a lot of work for Arizona to get to this point, but Koa Pete was a big reason why. As a freshman, nationally, Koa Pete was known. And Koa Pete was known that, hey, you need to pay attention to Arizona, you need to pay attention to what's going on. Oh, he just so happens to have a 7-foot big that's going to go to U of A on his team. All right, pay attention to that team even more. Oh, he has a brother of a potential lottery pick and is 6'8". Oh, he's a 5-star too. Koa brought a lot of spotlight onto the state of Arizona that the state of Arizona wasn't getting before he got there.
Yeah.
And so I think in terms of just pure impact off of that alone, he puts himself high in that conversation. What pushes him over the too is that all due respect to Mike Bibby, all due respect to Richard Jefferson, Jared Bayless, all the people who played in black and white photos, all due respect, they were not facing the competition Koa Pete is facing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Koa Pete had Perry playing national teams, national games on national television. Koa Pete, in terms of basketball in the state, Koa Pete's the only one who played when the rest of the state had comparable competition to everybody else. Arizona, back when Richard Jefferson and freaking Mike Bibby and them were going at it, it wasn't as deep. The talent pool wasn't as deep. I mean, goodness gracious, how many Division I players do we have in the state right now? We have almost double-digit 4-star prospects who play AIA basketball alone.
Right.
We have 9 4-stars right now, including a 10th who's literally 2 spots off of being a 4-star.
Yeah.
In the state playing AIA basketball. The talent pool has never been that deep at any other time. And Koa has dominated through it all.
Yeah.
So, yes, if Koa Pete finishes the job in hell, I may make the argument that even if he doesn't finish the job and Perry loses, he's still the greatest player of all time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, in my opinion, I agree with you that either way, whether or not Perry wins its 4th, which I still think they'll win their 4th, or doesn't, he will go down as the greatest Arizona high school basketball player of all time. And because you said guys like you talked about, Mike Bibby, Richard Jefferson weren't playing the same sort of competition that Koa was playing. Koa still has one decision to make, though, and that is where he's going to go to school. We're not going to talk about where we think he's going to go, but
not to Bobby Hurley.
Two of the teams that are on that list played each other this week, and let's just say that one smacked the other in the mouth and maybe like pushed them like into the pool and like threw them in a dumpster, and I don't know, a mix of that. But Houston on the road embarrassed Arizona State on Tuesday night. And it really just has been such a rough going. Arizona State loses their 7th straight home game, and is the worst streak for the Sun Devils since they opened Desert Financial Arena in 1974. So we're talking about
50 years.
We are talking about over 50 years since the Sun Devils have had the kind of season that they've had. What do you and you know, I go out there covering a lot, so these people on here have heard plenty from me about talking about the team. What do you make of the team? Because we've talked about it before the season, and obviously the big thing is, you've got Jaden Quaintance, who has missed some time to injury. You got Yosan Sandin, who hasn't looked like Yosan Sandin or any sort of version of Yosan Sandin since coming back from his injury. You've got a guy like Bashir Jihad, who's going to give you the most up and down, games night to night. You've got guys like Alston Mason who have really stepped up late in the season. And then you've got another guy that's actually been a part of Arizona State for a while, and Sean Phillips, who actually, in my opinion, if I had to give a most improved trophy to a certain player on this team, I would absolutely give it to Sean Phillips.
Yeah. This team, this is a family-friendly show, so I'm gonna be polite when I say this. So forgive me. This team's a 2-pack of ass. Like, I'm sorry. There's no other way to put it. I'm sorry. There was no other way to put it. Listen, let's call it what it is. Let's call it what it is. And listen, ASU people may not like me after this. Bro, can we, the marriage between Bobby Hurley and ASU basketball needs to be done. All right? Like, all things considered, the Netflix thing fell through. The freaking recruit. I would bet a lot of money right now Jaden Quaintance is not on this roster once the transfer portal opens after the NCAA's tournament. I would bet too that it's going to take a lot of overhaul to turn this program back into not even back into a legitimate contender in the Big 12 Conference. It's too deep of a conference. I mean, for crying out loud, Kansas State looked dead on arrival and then had a 6-7 game stretch whereby every advanced metric and every number possible, they played like the number 1 team in the country. Mm-hmm. That could just happen with a random team in the Big 12, and you aren't even going to be prepared for it. Like, to me, what's so disappointing about this ASU season, when you go back and you look at the non-conference schedule, when you go back and look at the certain matchups that they had highlighted before the season has started, the Gonzaga game. Think about how close they played Gonzaga.
Yeah.
I mean, think about
they had Gonzaga beat until the very end. If you think about it, if you go back and watch that.
Santa Clara, a great WCC team this year, has been playing their tails off. GCU is going to make the tournament again by being the WAC champion. New Mexico is on the verge of making it as an at-large team. They could lose the Big Mountain West tournament and still get into the tournament. Do you know how hard that is as a mid-major? And you beat them. St. Mary's is going to the tournament, and they beat them. Let's see. Who else was in the knockout? I mean, hell, Florida may be a 1 seed. Granted, you got your teeth kicked in, but at least you played them.
Yeah.
Like, it's been so embarrassing to see this team squander literally as good of a non-conference schedule and resume as you could have and not be successful. But guess what? That is the freaking story of the Bobby Hurley era at Arizona State. How many times in the Bobby Hurley era has ASU started off strong in the non-conference, played a tough or a tricky non-conference, maybe lost the game they shouldn't have in the non-conference, but overall were really good, and then crapped the bed in conference play?
I would say at least 6 out of the 10 years that Bobby has been the head coach at ASU.
It's cool. Okay, cool. If you're not really committed to winning and basketball isn't a priority, cool. Let's go be let's have ASU go be the Big 12 champions of the beginning of November through the beginning of January. Go ahead. Go win that. There's your Big 12 banner. Go ring it up in the old dusty whatever it is of DFA.
DFA.
Like, go ahead. Go hang it up. But if you're actually serious about being a Big 12 contender and turning into a basketball program and trying to create the success and replicate what your football program has built and what Bloomquist is building back up with your baseball program, and with everything all considered, he can't be the coach. And it's the same thing with the women's basketball side. It's been awful.
Right.
Basketball is the worst it's been at ASU since I've been out here. That is a problem.
No, absolutely. I agree. I will say, though, even though there are so many lows, I don't think let's say ASU decides to get rid of Bobby Hurley. Let's say they go in a new direction, they get a new coach. I really don't think, just because of the current world we live in, and this is something Kenny Dillingham actually talked about yesterday in his press conference. With the success that the football team had this season, he said it was something like, it's no coincidence that the left hand and the right foot and the right foot, and the left hand, the right hand, and the right foot and the left foot all go together, right? You got a group in ASU football that's had a lot of success. That is driving a lot of excitement for Willie Bloomquist and his squad, bringing the new pitching staff. Obviously, they've got their new whole pitching thing that tells, I don't know, it's some mechanics thing. You got building an IL for that. Basketball, even you look at it, they might not be great, and they're not, but they have NIL, and it's way more than they had last season. Because I can tell you right now, they were giving about almost more than 85% of that money to one player, and I think we all know who that one player is.
Yep.
And he's gone, right? I really think that with the foundation that Arizona State has built as an athletic program overall, if they decide to go in a new direction and get a new coach, I really do not think it's going to take them that long to get back to the top.
I also think, too,
but you have to hire the right person.
Exactly. And so for me, I love college basketball. You know this. I'm a degenerate when it comes to college basketball in more ways than one. I love the sport, love everything about it. When it comes to March, you know this, especially when it comes to mid-majors, I think the cheat code, if you will, is to go and hire the best mid-major coach possible or available. Have, in a way, a lot of his guys transfer to the school you're at and have him build upon with what he has and build that core.
So you're kind of talking a lot of what West Virginia did this season.
Darian DeVries coming over from Drake. Think of Dusty May coming from FAU. Look at how good Michigan has been. Look at how quickly Dusty has turned around with Juwan Howard tore apart at Michigan. Pat Kelsey coming over from Charleston to Louisville. Look at how good Louisville has been this year compared to how bad Louisville the past 4 or 5 years since COVID has been a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
Pat Kelsey has them looking like one of the best teams in the ACC and looking like a top 25 team.
Look at Missouri. Look at Missouri from this season.
Gates,
they were terrible last year, and now they just took down Alabama.
Or think about, I'm so mad I'm blanking on where he came from, but Vanderbilt just firing Jerry Stackhouse and hiring Mark Byrington, beating Tennessee, beating Alabama, beating Kentucky, being a legitimate threat in the SEC to win any game possible. Todd Golden, look at how successful he was when he left San Francisco to what he's done at Florida right now. Shout out to the Sunny Slope legend, but like. The blueprint and the formula is there. ASU, with how well athletically they've started to build up NIL, they've started to build the resources. Graham Rossini, I believe it was yesterday, went on the radio and said that ASU was going to be in the coming weeks.
That was a couple days ago, but yes, they are.
Yeah, announcing that they're going to be doing renovations and other things to DFA, to not make it look like a dump. And so when you have that level of investment, you have that buy-in.
Yeah.
You know that, surprisingly, when you look at what the potential revenue sharing model is going to look like, and you look at how ASU is going to be in the top half of the Big 12 conference in terms of funding going towards basketball, you have all the pieces and everything there possible to build a winner.
Right.
And so to me, like, no.
And athletics-wise, you know where ASU stands at the Commissioner Cup?
Is ASU number 1 in the Big 12?
Number 2.
Gotcha.
Kansas is number 1, and that's primarily driven because of basketball and their other, smaller sports that just win championships. But Arizona State, I mean, you look at it, you look at football, you look at volleyball, you look at the 4-0 start that baseball's off to, and they'll probably get 2 more easy wins this weekend against Oral Roberts. You look at hockey, who has done phenomenally well, even though they don't really tie into the Big 12. But you're playing in a top conference like the NCHC, and they're playing Western Michigan the next 2 days, which is probably the biggest game of ASU's hockey Division I, their time in Division I.
Yeah.
What they could be able to pull from basketball by doing things like making renovations to DFA, potentially getting a new head coach, driving more NIL funds, like,
Go out and get a really good mid-major coach who can have everybody transfer with them and who will not want to leave you for a bigger job because he's at a big program in Field 1. Go get somebody young and bold and innovative running a great offensive system and has transfers for days, such as Alan Nuss at High Point, Takayo Sadell from UNC Wilmington. Gosh, there's so many. Think about how good UC San Diego has recruited this state.
Yeah.
They're pulling Uriah Tenet. They may make the tournament as an at-large team out of the Big West. Not even as the conference share, as the Big West at large. It's going to be a 2-big lead. Like, there are so many examples. When you have those things, go out there and be successful. Now, listen, we said we weren't going to guess on where Koa Pete's going to go. I would bet the bank right now. Bobby Hurley's at ASU. Koa Pete will not be at ASU. And it's sad that it's come to this point, but it's the case. ASU, when you go back to August, all things considered, you could say August, September, before the basketball season even, ASU had a really good chance. They have squandered probably being the number 1 team on that board to possibly number 2 or number 3 on that board. Mm-hmm. And that says a lot. For a recruitment that's not NIL driven, for a recruitment that's not, anything more than just, hey, I want to be close to home. I want to be with my family. I want to be, where I feel wanted and want to feel comfortable. So where you're freaking 20, 25 minutes down the street from where the kid plays high school basketball and you can't close the job because of how you're coaching and how you are as a coach, that's damning.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's going to be an interesting offseason, not just for ASU basketball. There's another basketball team in the state in which it's going to be an interesting offseason for. That's the Phoenix Suns. We won't dive in too much into that just because it's crazy. It's madness. But, if you haven't checked out Jacob's article on Hypermark, he talks a lot about what the Suns could do this offseason to really boost their roster and to fix things, essentially. So if you haven't checked that out, go check that out. Our Suns conversation will be good for another time. Jacob's headed out to Millennium tonight. So if you're not following him, go follow him. And everybody else in the state that's doing basketball coverage, whether that be eVision, Greg Rosenberg, all the Timeout Arizona guys who always do great work. And playoffs, February frenzy, as I like to call it. It's crazy to think that basketball season is coming to a close. As we were talking about on the radio show last week when you weren't there.
About, you gotta say it like that. You gotta say it like that.
I didn't mean it like that. I didn't mean it like that. But
yeah, when you weren't there, it's like I believe it was PTO. What you need? It was PTO. It wasn't a no call no show. I took PTO. Like, what y'all want from me?
Anyways, what was I even saying?
Last week y'all talked to.
Oh yeah. Like there's so much, like football season goes so far and it goes so long, lasts so long. You talk about it for so long after that you don't even realize that we're halfway through the basketball season. And so it doesn't even really feel like sometimes that we're at the end of the basketball season, but we are.
Yeah. This time 2 weeks from now, we will be at the Coliseum. Let's see, it's 5:30. Getting ready for the 5A Girls Championship.
Yeah.
Then the next, it's crazy to say that in less than 2 weeks, basketball's over, but it is.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, baseball, track, all of them hit the ground running, no pun intended. Like, it's about to be.
That's pretty good.
A fun. And then, literally a month after that, a month after basketball, you got spring ball starting.
Yeah.
And the football conversation will begin again.
Yep.
And so it keeps rolling, and you just gotta catch it before it catches you.
Absolutely. Well, Jacob, appreciate you joining me on the show this week. That's going to do it for today's episode of the Week in Preview. Always great to have you on and talking ball and talking everything about the state. Keep if you're not following Jacob, make sure you go follow him. Instagram, Twitter, whatnot. It's covering everything. He's everywhere. But once again, thank you everybody for tuning in this week, and we'll see you all next week right back here in the Week in Preview.